Hello, friends. Welcome to Coding Garden, and welcome to this interview and Q&A session with Matteo Collina. So Matteo is going to be speaking at JSNation, which is the main JS conference happening in Amsterdam on June 1st, and as a hybrid day and remote on June 5th. If you visit cdg.sh/JSNation, they'll know that I sent you. So Matteo is the co-founder and CTO of Platformatic DB, which accelerates the development of modern backends and simplifies the complexity of operating them. He's on the board of directors of the OpenJS Foundation and a member of the Node.js Technical Steering Committee focusing on streams, diagnostics, and HTTP. He's also the author of the FastLogger Pinot, of the Fastify web framework, and many other open source modules in the JavaScript ecosystem. His modules were downloaded over 17 billion times in 2022. And at JSNation, he's going to be giving the talk, I Will Never Use an ORM. Matteo, thank you for joining us.
Hello. Hi, folks. How are you doing today?
Good.
I'm back on I'm back on Twitch. This is fun. I was on Twitch on Monday, and I'm going to be on Twitch tomorrow. So it's
awesome.
Keep being on Twitch. And I didn't know this was on Twitch and live up until I showed up. So it was perfect. Amazing.
Yeah, okay. Definitely go drop a follow over on Matteo's channel. He's here on Twitch. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. So cool stuff. Very happy about being here and talking about JSNation, which is one of my favorite conferences, and I can't wait to be back in Amsterdam, one of my favorite cities, on June 1st. So pretty much amazing.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. It'll be my first time in Amsterdam and my first time at JSNation. I'll be an MC at the conference. So. Oh,
you're going to MC the conference?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing, man.
Awesome.
So we can't wait and hang out together and have some fun.
Definitely.
We can it will be a lot of fun. Have you ever been to Amsterdam before?
I haven't. It'll be my first time. Yeah.
Oh, wow. No, it's, look, folks, Amsterdam is amazing. I can give you some very nice pizza restaurant recommendation if you want.
Oh, sure.
Phenomenal pizza. It's almost as good as if you are in Italy. So
okay.
Look, I'm going to be, it's a small place, so we'll share it with all your audience so you can.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So
yeah.
I guess let's get into it. Your talk is going to be I Will Never Use an ORM. Can you give like a short elevator pitch of what's going to be covered in that talk?
Yeah, of course. So here is the elevator pitch is so people are using ORMs all the time. And they use them mostly because it's cargo culting, and they don't want to learn their database most of the time. And they are essentially optimizing for the wrong thing. It's if you want to build a nice backend or a nice API, you probably don't want to use an ORM. And most of people that build you an ORM that tell you otherwise. I have been scarred by them since very early in my career. I have all the scars. My first car was Hibernate. I'm sorry. Okay. Then I ended up having to fight all of them. The only almost nice one is Active Record from Ruby on Rails. Okay, mostly because Ruby is probably the best language in the world, and unfortunately, it's also slow because it's the best language. You cannot be having nice things and be fast at the same time. So unless you're using Ruby and you can do all the magic Ruby can do. Probably you don't want to use that at home. So anyway, that's kind of the catch on the topic. So pretty amazing. And that's kind of it.
Awesome.
So and then we're going to walk you through I'm going to walk people through why they should not be using an ORM.
Okay.
What they should be using instead. What I do use, okay, what I do recommend, and what they should think about when choosing a technology, okay? And would it help us or no, essentially?
Definitely. So. Yeah. So I guess on that point, and if you're okay with talking about it now before your talk, what would we use instead of an ORM? Because I mean, I've heard the opinion as well, like basically like maybe like stick to SQL for everything that you can and all that, but
okay.
Yeah.
So let's chat a little bit. Okay. So there are two complex so you use a database for two things. Okay. Mm-hmm. The first one is basically storing data. Right? Pretty much bare bone CRUD operations. Okay. Then you have custom business logic that is implemented and realized that can be implemented and realized on top of said data. Okay. Typically, when you're building an application, you can have joins, okay, or you can have complex, filters, or can have nested queries, can have all sorts of complex things. Implementing those in code instead of the database is typically the wrong spot, because it will be significantly inefficient and it will cause massive problems.
Right.
And anybody who tell you otherwise is lying. And there are very popular modules on NPM that tells you, oh, please you don't need joins. We implement something better on our end. So use our stuff. And it was just like, you are trying to tell me that all those books that I have over there about database designs are wrong, and you're right. And sorry, I don't believe you.
No, for
okay.
Sure.
There's a gap in here. And the point is, this library is super popular because a lot of people, and this is not bad on their end, come into JavaScript and Node, and they don't have done any formal studies. And therefore, they don't know. And because they don't know, then they are more or less a little bit, I would say it's at a disadvantage compared to, something that is very popular and says something that is absolutely not good.
Definitely. And I guess, and what my mind goes to is, I think the reason a lot of people early on will choose an ORM, because early on in a smaller app, it works fine. But I think kind of the point you might have been getting at is it doesn't necessarily scale, right? Because if you're doing certain things in application code and you're not doing them in the database, then it's not going to scale as well. Is that what you're saying, or?
No, it's different. Okay. So what I'm saying is an ORM is great for doing CRUD.
Okay.
And the moment you're not doing CRUD, then you're tangled in using the object from the ORM. So typically what an ORM provides you is some concept of a model or a fat object, okay, or some level of fat model, okay? I don't know, it is a movie object, okay, or something like that. And those objects are special. It have the method attached from the ORMs and things like that. Now, the problem comes that you start using those objects all around the code base.
Yeah.
And you also have the relations typically implemented inside your ORMs for doing things. And at that point in time, your code base becomes a massive block of spaghetti code. That's the gist, because you cannot easily disentangle. All the models are networked, connected together and stuff like that, and you can't easily disentangle them. And at some point, you have all this logic and code depending on your module objects, on your models. But then you will need to write some custom SQL. Happy days, because you need to actually use your database. Okay, it's biased. Okay, and you need to do you have your SQL, so you will have to, because at some point the ORM will not be enough. Okay, and it will be on the way. Now the custom SQL will return more or less raw data that does not map into any model that you have. But the rest of your code base actually need those objects, and now you're pretty much screwed. And you're actually fighting against the river to implement a complex feature, and that's where all things goes. It's probably the worst anti-pattern that you can probably get into. Yes. At that point in time, you're basically fighting against your ORM to ship the feature that you want to ship, and that's not, and basically you are optimizing essentially for the wrong thing. You are optimizing your code for doing something simple instead of doing something hard.
For sure. I guess so. One of the benefits, I guess, of using some of the ORMs is that you get cross platform or cross DB support. I guess how do you
is that a thing? Is the question? Have you ever migrated an application from MySQL to Postgres?
Well, I typically use it the idea of using SQLite in dev and then Postgres in production. And so the code base can.
Are you sure this is a good idea to begin with?
I mean, it helps with the development, but I'm not saying it's a good idea. I'm just saying
it's a phenomenally bad idea.
Okay.
There's a fundamentally difference between the database. You want your dev and your team to use the same database locally as they will use in prod. So this is essentially a really bad idea.
I see.
Technically possible, but practically don't do that. Don't go there. Like, it's problematic.
And I'm okay with that. I think that's something that, because that's a point that people bring up a lot, is like the cross-platform and being able to like move your code base. But yeah, I've never migrated a code base. I think the main thing I've used it for is like local versus prod. But I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like there are certain things that are in prod that you couldn't replicate with like a local dev database or something like that.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me a little bit about Platformatic DB? I know this is something that you're working on, and is this kind of the answer to an ORM list?
Well, this is my take on the problem. Okay. So my take on the problem, I used to more or less code stuff from scratch, and then we started working, and we launched this startup called Platformatic, and we needed to store some stuff on the database, and we scrappy startups and stuff. We need to ship things fast. So I decided, well, I'm going to code a backend once, and then we are just using it everywhere. So basically, Platformatic DB takes reads your schema, your SQL schema, and automatically creates APIs for it out of the box. So you get OpenAPI and GraphQL essentially out of the box in a way that is a good production setup.
Awesome. So you kind of just
the TLDR of it.
You just point it at the database, and it infers the table definitions. It creates all the endpoints, everything. That's awesome. Yeah, pretty
much.
Cool.
So that's what it does. It supports it has some concept of authorization built in, so you don't need to implement that. We don't do caching right now, but it's just on the roadmap. Unfortunately, I haven't got much time to. Time is a tyranny, but it will get caching very soon. I just need to code it. Like the caching system logic is already done. I just need to hook it up. Awesome. And then there is quite a lot of other things, to be honest. So which are pretty interesting. For example, it has automatic event loop protection for your system, so it won't crash. Essentially, it's very robust. And even if you receive a lot of queries at the same time, a lot of load, it will stay up and keep responding. It might respond with an error, but at least it's responding. Okay,
definitely.
It have a night. It implements. It automatically look up for Prometheus metrics. It has good logging out of the box and so on and so forth.
Yeah, awesome. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to get some questions from the chat.
Yeah, sure. What are the questions for the chat?
They'll have to come in. So in the chat, if you have a question, !ask, it'll show up on this site, and then we can ask Matteo.
Amazing.
But in the meantime, I'll give a quick shout out to JSNation. So this interview is brought to you by JSNation. If you visit cdg.sh/JSNation, you can learn more. But Matteo's going to be there. He's going to be giving 2 talks. The other one is we're not going to talk about yet. And also, I will be an MC there. So you're going to see all these great speakers. Lots of cool stuff to do. So definitely check out JSNation. Yeah, so Bogdanovich has a question. What's your take on Keasley or Connects?
Okay, I have 2 takes on Keasley on Connects. Mm-hmm. Connects is awesome. Okay, it's however it's a nice query builder. Okay, no problem against it. Okay, it's more or less fulfill the same purpose of not using an ORM. Okay, I personally prefer raw SQL more with target templates, essentially, mostly because I can use 100% of my database. So I don't, so I can use all the features. Like, database, I have new software that gets released. They do multiple releases per year, right? With shipping new stuff all the time. You typically want to use the new stuff that the database are coming out. Okay, you want to use the best of what they can do. Typically, if you pass through an intermediary layer, you lose that. Okay, so for example, if you want to use all the JSON features of Postgres, which are amazing, you're kind of a little bit stuck if you want to use any of those things in between. So
yeah,
that's the first. That's the thing one for query builders. Okay, Keasley is a different topic. Okay. The main advantage of Keasley is to provide nice TypeScript definitions, essentially. So in that sense, okay. And I don't know. I am a little bit that's essentially what I would say it's about. Like, you need to generate the database schema. It gets you the types, okay? So, which is pretty cool, to be honest. But that's about it. And I still don't, the query stuff is good. Like, both approaches makes absolute 100% sense. So just use what works for you. They're not ORMs though, okay? They are query builders, okay?
Yep.
I prefer a tagged a query builder approach, mostly because it's, as I said, more native, okay? So I can use the best that SQL gives me, okay? Like, for example, you could use, I ended up using a lot of the time, sometimes like custom locks or other obscure features of Postgres versus or MySQL to get something, or manually manage transactions, for example, for handling certain business logic cases. So again, as I said, I am pretty much convinced on the fact that if you are working on top of a database, you need to embrace whatever interface the database gives you. That's the most expressive one, and the one that will enable you to implement most of the things. Okay, you need to know that. Now, once you know that well, you might even just jump and use an upper layer to some extent, but you need to know that lower level thing well, because if you don't, when the will hit the proverbial fan, you will not be able to debug it. So you're pretty much screwed.
For sure. I think I think that applies to a lot of different things. So like, I teach a lot of like React, and I like to like make sure that students understand vanilla DOM beforehand. Like understanding the internals before like using something on top of it. I think it's a similar idea there as well.
Yeah.
And also like I have a similar experience with like Connects and Keasley where I was using it with Postgres, but the moment I needed to do like JSON aggregation, I had to do SQL raw anyways. So
this is my problem.
yeah.
Okay, it's this is the problem where I am at. Okay, so
Is there? You mentioned you use like a tagged template library. Do you remember the name of it or one that we can look at?
So I use a thing called @databases, and this is also exposed inside Platformatic. Okay.
Okay.
And it's what we use internally in Platformatic.
I've never heard of this. This is cool.
Then there are others, to be honest. The key question is you want something that handles the injection for you, that protects you from injections.
Right.
So, but that's more or less just about it.
Awesome. Yeah, and if people haven't seen this before, essentially, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the JavaScript ecosystem that's like based on tagged template literals, but they give you this in this library. They give you this SQL function where you pass a tagged template literal, but it actually turns that into an escaped SQL query.
Yeah, pretty much.
Cool.
No, it's pretty amazing. Like I like it quite a lot.
Okay. This question comes from Veritatas. What's the difference to something like Hasura? So I guess if people haven't heard of...
This is a phenomenal question. I love the question. Thank you very much, Veritatas.
Yeah.
So, loving this question. So, it is a key difference between what we do in Platformatic DB and Hasura.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Hasura is amazing. We got quite a few inspiration from them. In fact, I am a fan. I was a fan of the early work. I've used them before they were less than 1.0. So, put the stuff in production way before they raised big money on VC. So big fan of their work. Now, what they have two main issues. I have two main problems with Hasura. So the first one is customizing it is very painful. You need to use their custom runtime, and they need to use the custom runtime. They need to use they custom hooks. It's all written in Haskell, and you need to, in order to extend it, you need to use custom hooks. So it means that you need to have your Hasura process and another process that's configured via hooks to make everything more complicated. If you want custom auth logic, you need to have more hooks and more things running at the same time. And this is made simple by their cloud product, and which is great. But again, it's you're entering the world of serverless functions, essentially, which all the things that makes them complex to use, operate, and make things fast and slow at the same time. This is the first problem. So customization, big time. What how Platformatic solves it? Very easily. You can just write a Node.js route or Node.js resolver just within it, and we just get published automatically. So you can customize it the way you want straight from it. It's all written in Node, so there's no need for any external function or any other stuff that's running. You can just add it to that same Node process. The second one is Platformatic DB offer OpenAPI too, which is pretty great.
Right, because Hasura is just GraphQL, right?
Azure is just GraphQL. And by the way, I don't know the audience, so it would be. Can you do polls here? Does poll work for you?
Yeah, let's do it. What do you want to do?
Because every single time I do a poll on my stream, it doesn't work. It crashes.
Oh,
so I don't know why it crashes all the time.
I'll try it. Yeah. What do you want to poll?
So developers prefer REST, or do you prefer REST or OpenAPI? REST or GraphQL?
Okay. Let's see. We'll do a 2-minute poll.
Yeah, let's do that. This is really, I have my numbers, but every time somebody asks this question, I tend to ask that question and ask them what the people feel about it. Okay. So it's great. So there was quite a few messages in the chat. Okay, one was, can you show a quick example on how this customization work? Yes, we can. Okay, you can go on. Let me show something very simple to begin with. Let me get you a link. Okay. So we have our tutorial. It says a repo. Is a tutorial movie quotes up repo. Pasting here. Okay, here and also in the chat. Okay. So if you open up that link, and here you go, and you can go inside apps and movie quotes API, and then you can open plugin.js. So this is just an app that shows movies, okay, and quotes for those movies, and it has a button to like them. And this is what I'm meaning by being simple to do that. You have it adds a quote. If you go like 25, you see that there is a quotes ID like to add a like to implement the like button. And
so lines 25 through 27, that's basically, is that hooking into the existing post route for it, or is creating a new post route?
Yes, exactly. So it adds a new post route. So you can add a new post route. And then it gets automatically added to your OpenAPI definition. And if you do the extend schema with the defined resolvers, it will go into your GraphQL.
Very cool.
I just want to note line 12.
Yep.
Okay. Line 12 does these update set likes +1. Okay. It's an atomic one hop replacement of increment of the value, which in most ORMs you need to read and then write, with the problem of having an issue with transaction concurrency. So wanted to mention why. I mean, you need to use your database at its best to do those things.
But I think it's a good example, because, I mean, a lot of people don't think about that. Like, you write the ORM code to, like, increment something, but you don't think about, okay, there's 5-10 requests coming into the app at the same time. Like, how do you manage to make sure that they stay in sync? And if you do it directly in the database, then it supports that, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yep. Awesome. So the result of the poll, 87% prefer REST in the chat right now.
Yeah, this is, even worse, okay? Like, even worse. Essentially, usually my numbers are 80-20, typically.
Yeah.
More or less, but I did have 2 cases where 83%, 84, something like that. 87 is probably the maximum that I've seen, but still, that's the case. You see, what's the difference? Well, developer wants REST. They don't want GraphQL for whatever reason. I might disagree, might agree. I love GraphQL. I love the tech. So I don't want to even enter that discussion. I like them both. They both are different use cases. So, but that's the case. If you don't offer REST, you are pretty much at a disadvantage for a lot of things.
So we showed the customization. Stas says Matteo is cool. That's their only comment here.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
Let's see. Yeah, Bogdanovich says, how's type safety with the SQL tag stuff? Is it possible to infer the outputs to TypeScript interfaces?
This is bad. No,
Okay.
no, you can't.
Okay.
No, you can't. Well, it's something that I would really love to be working on, but no, I don't. Platformatic DB also offers an internal API that you can just interact with our internal SQL mapper. This has all the types. So if you go back into that folder, into that repository, and oh no, it's not there. I've not saved the files, but it also generates all the types for all the tables.
I see.
So you have all the types for all the tables, okay, available to you. It's not in this example though.
Okay.
I can probably show you a different one that has them. Just a second. Okay, so here it is. And yeah, this is essentially the type of stuff that I'm passing it in here. This is the type of things that we Platformatic will auto-generate. So you have all the interfaces for all the types, but for the query, you will need to do it by yourself, essentially, mainly because typically what you do for SQL, you don't want to map it one-to-one to your existing types. Right. Because if it maps one-to-one, you probably are going to use them your models or your query builder or whatever it is. Typically, it's custom query, and a custom query should have its own kind of specific result. What would be freaking awesome would be, I give you a query, and based on the schema, you can automatically generate me the types. Yeah. That would be pretty rad. I've researched this problem a little bit. It's totally not easy. Actually, it's freaking hard. So it's and my TypeScript is not that good. So I can generate. I learned. I got pretty much better since I started Platformatic. But still, it's not at the level of being able to do that kind of AST manipulations on it. So as you can see in the example here, you have the
Sacron.
This is just a queue system. So you can open up the message, for example, and you can see that it has the types already defined and so on for all the properties of a message itself. So it's pretty neat.
So is this like generated using the CLI or how's it?
Yeah, it's generated automatically. So when you run a migration or you just start it, if it's not there and you have if you put in the configuration, which is on by default to generate the types, it will generate the types for you.
Awesome.
So, and it all works with auto completion, even if you just use JavaScript and not TypeScript. So it's all looked up correctly when you develop stuff to get things going.
Awesome. Let's see, a couple more questions.
By the way, come to JSNation, okay? It's amazing. Because this is all stuff that I can talk about, but I'm going to do a keynote with my co-founder. We're going to announce a bunch of new stuff that I cannot talk about during the interview. And CJ really wanted me to talk about that stuff, but I couldn't. So we are preparing a little bit of a nice show. So, it involves a big red button. So I just want to,
Awesome. Well, I think thanks for that segue though. We'll give another shout out to JSNation, cdg.sh/JSNation. Definitely check it out. If you can't attend in person, June 1st will be a hybrid day. And so the tickets are a bit cheaper if you want to attend the hybrid day. And then also there'll be a fully remote day on June 5th, but I'll be there. Matteo will be there. Tons of other people in the JavaScript.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
The number of attendees is bizarre. Like it's I think enormous amount of people are coming. Like the location is amazing. I was there a long time ago at a conference. So long time ago, I was at this conference called Motion Amsterdam. It was run at the same location. And Luke and myself were doing a talk on microservices, just to give you a segue. And it was brilliant. It's a brilliant venue. Brilliant.
Awesome.
Love it.
Yeah, I think the site says over 10,000 people attending in person. That's crazy.
Look, it's bizarre. Like I can't wait. I have not been at like the last one that I've been at this size was JSConf. I'm sorry that my friends are not running it anymore. So
awesome. This one comes from Bogdanovich again. For both of us, do you think we've come to a point where we're obsessed with type safety too much? I've seen people writing tests for types.
Okay. I am one of those people. I write tests for my types. So
okay.
because if I'm writing code and types is code, type it needs to be covered by tests. Okay, if it's not covered by tests, it does not exist, because then I can break you. Okay, so typically, people in TypeScript know that TypeScript does not support somewhere, so I know types can break anytime, any updates on anything. So who cares? But still, it's you really want to be able to test your types, especially if you have a very complex typing system in place. So there is a cool library called TSD that you can use to test your types. Okay, so it's great, and I really love TSD. It's amazing. Okay, this is just so brilliant. Okay, that you're missing out if you're not using it for maintaining your types.
Awesome.
Okay, but there is a but. I'm also a person that says that if you write TypeScript, you should be using TS expect error and TS ignore like they are your two best friends. Okay. Yeah. So those two are your two best friends. The first one better than the latter, but look, you really want to in certain cases, TypeScript can be in the way of productivity big time. Like solving some weird TypeScript combo can be, an afternoon of work.
Yeah.
And I don't think that produces any value whatsoever if you know that that's valid JavaScript. So either you cast it or you ignore the error or forget about it and just keep going and put a unit test on the topic and forget about it.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't. TypeScript is not like they claim it's a superset of JavaScript. For me, it's a subset of JavaScript, like the one that you can define only using strict types is a subset of it. And then you have a problem there. Okay. Because in a lot of cases, that JavaScript is a very dynamic language and you're trying to use it in a much strict way.
Right.
And that's a subset of what the language can do. And in a lot of cases, you want to use the full power of your language. It's there for a reason, and it's pretty great. So, it's like from proxies to object.create to metaprogramming to symbols to a lot of other stuff. It can get very complicated to code them in. Not is not possible. It's just hell of a lot of a complication.
Right.
Okay. And then the return on investment of that complication might be gets lower, and it's how much time should some types saves you to be worth 4 hours of work?
Yeah, I don't know.
Just to give you this is the type of stuff that I am where I'm saying probably not. I whenever I'm doing TypeScript and just doing it by slap, if I can't find a solution in 5 minutes to my TypeScript compilation issue, not the actual code running, the compilation issue, I either cast or throw a TS ignore and forget about it.
Yeah, I think so. Like I mostly agree. I came from a C# background, so I had a full heavily typed. Like you can do dynamic things in C#, but most everything is typed, and that's the background that I came from. So when I started using JavaScript, it was like a breath of fresh air, like how dynamic it was. So
yeah.
And then when TypeScript came around, I was actually slower to adopt it because I was like, this is the whole reason I'm using JavaScript. I want the dynamic. But these days, I think if you're working on a team, you should be writing TypeScript. It's basically inbuilt documentation.
I am not of that opinion.
Okay.
And I know at least one major company that did a big splash on adopting TypeScript that's reversing that decision.
Yeah.
And moving away from TypeScript back to JavaScript, because they saw a decrease in productivity.
Yeah.
So,
I guess it depends, right? I think because if you're only using JavaScript and you're not using something like JSDoc, then
no. Sorry, I'm not saying not using JSDoc. I'm saying, this is where I'm going, and it's if you're doing types I am all in. I'm very the developer experience of having types for your frameworks, for your framework stuff, and the API that you have built. Let's say you're building a module and you are exposing it, and If you're building it with JavaScript and just using the model, you need to have either types or JSDoc or something that provides autocompletion. If you don't provide autocompletion these days, you're screwed. The developer productivity goes down like big time. Eventually, everything will go away because Copilot will figure it out, and you don't need TypeScript anymore. But up until that happen, things will. You probably need the types, and they are great. And so, yeah, big time.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I am a little bit more skeptical on, like, again, to be very strict about it. Okay, and the complexity the subtle complexity that writing all your code base with TypeScript adds.
Mm-hmm.
We are not using TypeScript for building Platformatic. Okay, so I'm not, and nobody's kind of missing it. To be honest, we are shipping super fast.
Sure.
So I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, I think I get it too. I think what you mentioned earlier is absolutely important. I think if you're learning TypeScript, you need to know when to use tsignore, when to use tsexpectError, when to use the anytype to I guess like get things done. You don't want TypeScript to get in your way.
Yeah, this is my take. Okay, if you do that, then you can have a very good experience with TypeScript. Yeah. If you are very, if you're too strict about it, then you can get stuck into I need to fix the compiler type of stuff, and then you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, and so I've seen people in both camps, and I think I have seen people that have gone too far into TypeScript, where basically like everything has to be like the perfect types, and they're spending all their time on the types, and they're not actually spending any time like working on features or like shipping code. So
you see my problem, right?
Yeah.
It's yeah. Okay.
Awesome. I think so there was a related question from Veritatas who says JSDoc or TypeScript. But if you had to pick one, and I guess you already mentioned there's some.
I typically use types specific, so the d.ts thingy, the definition types. I don't for most of the time. For the type of stuff that I do, JSDoc is not smart enough to pick it up.
I see.
So it's essentially Fastify is written in JavaScript, but it's shipped and sold into with its own types. And the types of Fastify are actually freaking big. If you look at it, like if you open it up on the repo, and
is it just a TypeScript definition like this one?
Yeah, no, look at it. But look at how many. So look at all the imports. Scroll down. Look at all the imports.
Yeah.
This is that and if you scroll down, look at how big this file is.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there are all the others that are even bigger than this one. So I just want to clarify how. But with the Fastify, this web framework for Node that you can use to build APIs and stuff like that is at the basics of Platformatic. And there is a concept called type providers, which are amazing. You should check them out now. Okay. So if you go back into one level in the Fastify org, you can find them from there.
Okay.
Go back into the Fastify org, and then if you search, you can put type box. And you can write your API definitions just in a super simple way. So you can just define your route. So this is a TypeScript file, and you can set up a type provider. You create your the schema and the validation for your inputs by using this library that creates very quickly JSON schema definitions. And then the types are automatically desumed and created by the system. So when you do rec.body, it has the correct type for your body. This is a major problem in all the frameworks that doing APIs.
Right.
And by the way, this is compatible also with Platformatic. So you can use this same concept to define your routes in Platformatic, which is pretty amazing from my point of view.
Yeah.
And this enables you to create all sorts of things and have them defined very, very quickly, and have type safety too because type safety only provides you that so type safety, when you do TypeScript, does not do runtime validation. And with this system, you have runtime validation of your inputs, automatic type safety, so you don't need to do code to specify it twice. So you have validations and my types, but also it also provides automatic open API definitions if you want them to. So it's all just with like, I don't know, a few lines of code. So it's pretty rad.
Definitely. And I think that's one of the things that people, I guess, forget about if they choose Express. Like, it's really, there's not, I guess I haven't found anything that is able to like generate open API definitions just from your code. But when you start doing something like this, it becomes really easy because you get to define the body type and like the response type and everything else. So
yeah, pretty much works absolutely great and the way you would expect to. Awesome. So it provides a really good developer experience for TypeScript developers. So while not being written in TypeScript, but I this is great. So anyway, this is a good use of TypeScript. Okay, this is where I'm trying to going. This is a really good use of TypeScript. Other use of TypeScript, possibly not as good as this. Gives you a lot. Other stuff is can be too complex or too. This is great because it's standard. Like it's not creating a custom RPC framework or stuff like that. Okay, it's a standard API, REST plus Open API definition. You can take the API, Open API definition, generate a client in whatever language. It's a standard. You can generate a client in whatever language you want. It's great. So
definitely. Oh yeah, and I guess I just wanted to show on the Fastify repo on GitHub it says 91% JavaScript, 8% TypeScript. So
yeah, you see, but we do TypeScript. Okay, I'm just saying, just say. No, I'm not saying we don't. We don't. It's but consider this how much type definitions are in there. All of that is only for type devs. So consider how much there is. So sorry about it.
No worries. Okay.
This is blowing my
mind. Let's see. So Sammy is asking, do you use any other languages other than JavaScript? So I know you do like the readable stream for Node. Do you have to do any C++ for that or?
No, I do. I'm part of the Node.js technical steering committee, and I technically do some C++ and some C from time to time.
Okay.
So I also like Rust. I would pretty much prefer notebooks written in Rust. That ship sailed long ago. Sorry. And I've done C, I've done C++, I've done a little bit of Rust. Yeah, essentially.
Awesome. I mean, Bogdanovich has another question. They're full of questions today.
Happy. Get that coming.
What's your guys' opinions on juniors relying more and more on ChatGPT or Copilot? Do you think it'll bring a wave of people that think they do understand certain principles and topics, but in reality have no clue what they're doing?
So, okay, let me explain. So I can give you a very specific example of the previous generation of this question. Okay? So back 10 years ago, okay, Stack Overflow was a new thing, okay? If you remember, I don't know if you were in the industry at the time, okay? So, and a lot of people were competing and gaining points on Stack Overflow anyway. And certain issues, repeating issues, become very popular. And unfortunately, the first answer to those issues, which worked for most people, had a bug or have bugs. And I have started, after I fixed it once, I was being a consultant. After I fixed it for one of my clients, and then I started seeing the same thing over and over and over replicated to all the other ones. And to some extent, it was like, oh, you copied this code from this station Stack Overflow. And the developer that I said this typically went completely white and was super ashamed of themselves.
Yeah.
Because they said, how do you know? Are you a magician? How can you read minds and stuff? Because, it's such an easy way to distribute bugs, Stack Overflow, okay? Whenever you go in Stack Overflow, you need to read the comments, okay, and see if there's somebody that said this is wrong, okay, and typically there is the author of the thing or somebody that maintains saying no, this is wrong, use this other one, and then read down, and typically it's even downvoted. Typically the actual good answer is actually downvoted from the author for the maintainer of the thing. Okay. Right. So again, to go back to the topic of ChatGPT or Copilot, they are a phenomenal way to distribute bugs. Now, in order to use them successfully, you need to know and understand and read that critically. In the same way you read critically from Stack Overflow.
Right.
Okay. For the most basic things, they get things right on the first go. So you can get this feeling of and trusting them. Okay. For more complex stuff, you are pretty much screwed. So you want to use them for stuff that's boring. So typical thing that I use ChatGPT or Copilot for is to generate the SQL for creating my tables. So if I need to generate a SQL query or a SQL or a database, I typically ask ChatGPT to give me the scaffolding for it. Okay, right. I know enough SQL to can edit this myself. If I didn't know SQL, I would probably use it. Yes, but I will be getting so many bugs in my way. Like it's bizarre. Like the point is, the code even sounds almost right. So the code reads right, but it has very subtle bugs in it. Like very subtle. And then nobody really understands that code. So yeah, I am a little bit scared on what will happen, what's happening with all junior developers relying a lot on those tools,
right,
and not building the core skills that they need to be very effective. Okay, so this also means that I'm not absolutely scared about my specific job. Okay, it's senior plus engineers have a very, very bright future ahead of them. Okay.
Right.
You need to be good at your craft, and if you're good, this is not going away. But is it going to change the industry? Hell of a yes. Okay, these technologies are going to bring down cost of developing simple stuff down. So so again, it's I call it less code. So I call it less code versus no code. So it's less code. It's you write less code. Somebody else write it for you, or you use tool like Platformatic or Azure or wherever to be more effective and increase velocity and reduce development time. So
definitely. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think any new developer should think about Stack Overflow in the exact same way. Like, you shouldn't copy the code unless you understand every bit that it's doing, and you just apply that same logic to stuff generated by
pretty much, and then you're absolutely great with using those tools.
Yeah.
The problem is that if you just use them blindly,
yeah, I completely agree with that.
You see, I'm scared.
Let's see. So the Rugged Bear says Rust versus Zig versus Odin. I actually haven't heard of Odin.
I have no clue what Odin is. It's a god.
Yeah.
It's a god.
Data-oriented language for sane software development. Yeah, I haven't heard of it.
I guess I am an insane software developer because I'm coding in C++. So am I an insane software developer? I'm not. Or because I use JavaScript. So I'm insane. Okay, I can put it on the bio. Insane software developer. So I don't know. So I'm going to skip on Odin. Okay, I would not use sane as a tagline, so I'm skipping on that for that reason. I am going to give you a hint on Rust versus Zig. Okay, I haven't coded much in Zig. I've coded some stuff in Rust. So my overall opinion is that Rust is phenomenal. Like, coding in Rust is like fighting with the garbage collector all the time. So instead of when I code everything in JavaScript, you are literally fighting against the garbage collector, unless you want it or not. So and some steps that you do, if you don't keep in mind how the garbage collector will see your objects, you will get really be bitten very badly in the long run of your projects, because you will have memory leaks. Okay, or bad memory patterns. So when your application, you've seen it plenty of times, when your application starts consuming half a gig of RAM to exist, how many times you see a Chrome tab that it takes half a gig or a gig of memory just to exist?
Yeah.
Okay, no, these are pretty example. Okay, so you're coding your stuff wrong. Okay, and you don't even know that you are coding it wrong. So, and in Rust, you are forced to. So you're forced to code your application in a way that it's memory efficient. Why? Because you're doing the work that the garbage collector does at runtime to figure out when it can collect your memory. You're doing it at coding time. And it's actually the runtime, the compiler is actually very aggressive about it. So it's actually saying all that, hey, you don't let you compile. So it's once it compiles, it typically runs, okay? Compared to a lot of other languages. So right. No, I all things considered, I prefer Rust over Zing. Zing is way simpler, okay, as a language, and it has lighter, a different memory system, okay? So it's which I don't know how much safe it is, and I don't have that good answer for you. So
Rust is the answer.
Yeah.
Sammy says, not a question, but I just want to thank Matteo for his amazing projects and many open source contributions.
I love you too. Thank you very much. If you want, by the way, you can support me in a few ways. So there is my GitHub sponsor. You can send me money. You can subscribe to my Twitch stream, and all of that is set up so you can send me money that way. And then you can do, if you want, I can just use my Bitcoin address or whatever. You can just send me money, whatever. Happy to take it. So it's if you like what I'm doing, please support me. Everything helps. So
definitely. All right, we're pretty much at our time limit. Is there any last things you want to add, Matteo, before we end the interview?
Oh, I don't know. Look, this was a blast. So yeah, had fun. I had plenty of fun. Thank you for having me. It was very nice. And look, happy to be back, or whenever when there is a case. Happy to meet you in Amsterdam at JSNation.
Definitely.
Please come to JSNation, folks. It's a phenomenal conference. So it's all the Git Nation conference are great, but JSNation is fantastic. And I can't wait to be back in Amsterdam. So it's going to be a fun week. I've been there all week. So if you are hanging out and you want anything talk about Platformatic or Fastify, just come see me. I will also have a lot of stickers. So if you are wondering, oh no, I don't have them available here. Just a second. Yeah, I have a lot of stickers. I have a big bag of stickers for you. So if you see me in Amsterdam, please grab one of my stickers.
Nice, will do. And thanks again, Matteo, for being here. This was great. One last shout out to JSNation. If you visit cdg.sh/JSNation, you can learn more. It's the main JavaScript conference of 2023. Like Matteo mentioned, he'll be there. I'll be there. Tons of other people in the JavaScript community will be there. So we'd love to see you there as well. Matteo, if you want to stick around for like 1 minute after the call, and we'll end it. Cool. Sounds good. Alrighty, everyone. Thanks again for tuning in. And actually, we'll raid Matteo. He's not streaming right now, but go drop a follow over there on his Twitch channel, and definitely tune in whenever he's streaming on Twitch as well. But thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you at JSNation wherever you are in the world. Have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night. And until next time, here's this.